in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. This is Bill Maddox from the Carsey Institute at the University of New Hampshire, and welcome to the latest in our series of SMDP webinars. We're really happy today to have with us Greg Van Kirk. I'll tell you more about Greg and the micro-consignment work that he's doing in his introduction, but I just want to let everyone know that as our normal process, if you have been on one of our webinars, Greg is going to make a presentation for about 25 minutes. Then we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. There's an opportunity for you to ask questions by clicking in the little box where it says questions. If you look on your control panel, you can type in the questions. I'll be moderating the question asking, and there'll be an opportunity for you to ask follow-up questions if it seems appropriate. And another little feature, unique feature of today's webinar is that we are doing this in the midst of the SMDP New Hampshire certificate. It's our usual 2-week training program we do in New Hampshire. We've been doing here actually since 1999, and we have a classroom full of students from all over the world who are listening to this, and at a certain point in time I'm going to open up their mic and let them ask a few questions via audio. So this is kind of an experiment, but it should be pretty interesting, and hopefully all the technology cooperates. Greg is actually talking to us from, is it Managua, Greg, that you're in?
Granada.
Granada, Nicaragua. And let me tell you that Greg Van Kirk is the co-founder of Community Enterprise Solutions and Social Entrepreneur Core. He's a Ashoka Lemelson Fellow, Ashoka Globalizer, Schwab Foundation Social Entrepreneur of the Year in 2012, and a member of the Clinton Global Initiative and the Ashoka Siemens Foundation Community Impact Development Group. He and his team are focused on expanding the reach and impact of their award-winning micro-consignment model, which we're going to hear all about today, globally, and he has served as an economic development consultant for organizations such as USAID, Chemonics, Vision Spring, Soros Foundation, Church World Service, IDB, Water for People, and Fundación Paraguaya. Greg also contributes time as a social entrepreneur in residence for universities and has recently worked with Columbia University, New York University, Indiana University, University of San Diego, and Arizona State University. He's a senior advisor for Ashoka U. He has taught courses in social entrepreneurship at Columbia University and NYU Wagner. And Greg began working in rural small business development as a Guatemala Peace Corps volunteer in 2001. Greg worked in investment banking for 5 years before arriving in Guatemala. 2 deals he led at UBS during the time won the Deal of the Year honors from the Structured Finance International magazine. And Greg is a graduate of Miami University and currently lives with his family in New York City. So Greg, we're really very happy to have you here, and I'm going to turn over the webinar to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you very much for the invitation, and hopefully this is a great opportunity for me to tell a little bit about what it is that we do, why we do it, and how we do it with regards to the micro-consignment model, and then most certainly open things up and have a conversation with everybody on the line here. So as you had said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're coming from. So I'm going to spend about 20-25 minutes talking a little bit about our work, and look forward to any questions, comments, or observations or insights that you all might have. So just to begin with, as Bill had said, I'm the co-founder of 2 organizations which work, the idea is that they work symbiotically to create access for the first time primarily in rural communities in the developing world to technologies, products that have a positive impact on a family's life. That positive impact can be health, energy, economic, environmental, and oftentimes is all of those things at the same time. And the way that we do that is through the micro-consignment model, which empowers entrepreneurs, primarily women entrepreneurs, to go out to communities and obviously diagnose needs and offer solutions in concert with local leadership. So today I'm going to talk about the micro-consignment model, about the problem, the symptoms, the problems, why it exists, how we go about doing it, and then leave some final thoughts, which hopefully can spur a bit of discussion. So first of all, before getting into a solution, it's important that just we have clarity on the problem. And forgive me if this is something that everybody knows or is obvious, but if you look at these pictures simply as examples, is we have this symptom, and there's basically a systematic breakdown in value chains and supply chains in the market, whereby there is limited to no access to technologies. I mean, if you look at the picture on your left there, you have billions of people cooking on the floor around the world, cooking campfire style around the floor in their homes. Think about the impact that has from an economic perspective, of people having to go out and use wood, because use an inordinate amount of wood because they can only cook one thing at a time, or the smoke that families are inhaling, or women can only cook because they can only cook one thing at a time. They can't be productive and engage in other activities. So there's this lack of access to cook stoves, which we're all aware of. But there are cook stoves in existence. There is the technology. They're simply not getting to people. As well, if you look at the picture on the top, most people are drinking contaminated water. Think about what that does for a child. Diarrhea is obviously one of the number one causes of infant mortality. But there are water purification buckets. There are simple solutions for this. They're simply not getting to people. The woman on the right is a weaver. If you look at most people over 40 years old, 90% of people around the world over 40 years old, they're going to need near vision glasses, or what we would call reading glasses, at some point in time to be able to see up close, but they're not getting them. And so what does that mean? It means somebody who's been productive for their whole life, has mastered their trade, now can't see anymore. A weaver now can't weave anymore because she can't see the thread. But reading glasses are a simple solution. They've been around for a long time. They're simply not getting to people. And at the bottom is a final example. People don't have electricity. People live off the grid, or they live on the grid, but there are constant brownouts, so there's no reliable source of activity. So they use kerosene and candles. Well, now, especially over these past several years, we have inexpensive and high-quality solar technologies that are available to families that are economical, that not only provide light but can also charge cell phones, which help with productivity and help people avoid costs of having to go down the street and pay for a charge with somebody who has a car battery. But people aren't getting these solar technologies. So the basic problem here is that although the needs are profound and we understand them, and although the technologies are out there, there hasn't been a mechanism, or there aren't mechanisms at scale that are helping to get those solutions, create that access to solve these problems. So what does that mean? Maybe quite obvious, but it means that people are stuck in the cycle of poverty. And just sort of defining the cycle of poverty here being a set of factors or events by which poverty, once started, is likely to continue unless there's an outside intervention. I mean, if we just simply think about children and youth, I mean, certainly providing a cook stove or water purification or a solar light or eyeglasses helps the adult who might be receiving those and using those. But the real implication and the real challenge is that children and youth are losing opportunities. If you think about a cook stove, well, families, because they're spending so much money on wood, or because they have to send children out to collect that wood, children can't go to school, or you have to pick. I can only send 2 of my 3 children to school, so kids can't get an education. Right? Or kids are sick constantly, so they can't go to school because they're drinking contaminated water. Or families can't be productive and earn a living because they lack a simple pair of eyeglasses, so they can't afford to send their children to school. Or most certainly, it's very hard to study at night if you don't have any light. And so children and youth can't do their studies once the sun goes down. So if you think about the implication today, that's obviously profound. But the implication of this lack of access for tomorrow, and especially for the for the high youth population in countries where over 60% of people are under 30 years old, the implications are devastating, and it keeps people stuck in a cycle of poverty. So what we do, obviously, as social entrepreneurs and as development professionals, is simply trying to look, where can we intervene to break that cycle, to empower people to be able to solve these problems not only in the short term, but over the long term, so that they can help to lift themselves out of poverty and have an opportunity for success for the first time. So our innovation, our approach in doing this, which came directly from my work originally living in a rural community in Guatemala and looking for a way to provide access to cook stoves, is the micro-consignment model. And so within the micro-consignment model, what we're doing is providing these technologies. We're providing water purification buckets, drip irrigation systems so people can have vegetable gardens, solar lamps and cell phone chargers, energy efficient light, people can save money on electricity every month, vegetable seeds, near vision glasses, improved cook stoves, all these products, as I said, that have a positive impact on a family's life. And the way that we do that, to the title of the presentation, is through enterprise, as I had said. We identify, train, support, and equip primarily women entrepreneurs to go out to villages, to people's doorsteps, so to speak, to market and promote and sell these technologies, and obviously learn what it is that people really want. And so we've created this mechanism to create the supply chain and bridge the last mile for the first time, with the critical piece being this part of consignment, which I'll get into in the next slide. But basically the key being that a symptom is a lack of access, but one of the real problems is that people are living in uncertainty. And they don't have, potential entrepreneurs can't assess risk or don't have the self-efficacy oftentimes to be able to start up these types of ventures on their own. So what we're providing through consignment is a mechanism whereby we can equip people. They can invest what they have, which is energy and social capital and all of their skill sets. They don't have to invest money, and they can get out and start businesses. So this slide may be a little bit overwhelming, but let me use an example to describe where the micro-consignment model sort of fits into the spectrum. And I'll use near vision glasses. As I said, you have 90% of people over 40 years old who are going to need near vision glasses because they suffer from something called presbyopia. And if you look at the far left of this diagram, in the arrow you have donations. And so if you think about how are people currently getting in a rural community, say in Nicaragua, where I am right now, how are people currently getting reading glasses? Well, either A, they're not getting them at all, which is by and large the case, or B, oftentimes it's through donations. So well-intentioned people come down from the United States or Europe or where have you, and go to communities and donate the glasses. Well, I think we would all agree that if we're looking to empower people to solve their own problems in the future and create local markets, that donations aren't the solution. Donations fit for survival after an earthquake in Haiti or a tsunami or what have you, but they're not a long-term development solution. And even if we did think it was, there's not enough money in the world through donations to do this. And in addition to that, oftentimes through no intent of people donating, we tend to give things people that we think that they want, not that they actually want. So we're starting at donations today. Where do we want people to get to? Well, it's on the far right of the screen. Is we want there to be a basic business in place. We want there to be an efficient marketplace. We want there to be a place in a village or a community or nearby where a woman, Juana, can walk down the street and go buy her reading glasses from a business that's up and working and has different access to financing, and is stable, is continually meeting the needs and the desires of the community. Well, the difference between donations and getting to these basic businesses and efficient marketplaces is vast. And so we're a long way off, unfortunately, in so many places in the world and serving billions of people to getting to an efficient marketplace. So In between that, what I see is this is where you have economic development, and this is where innovation is needed, and this is where new solutions are needed to bring us from donations to these basic businesses. We need to create these markets. We need to empower entrepreneurs. We need to create awareness in these communities about the types of products and technologies that are out there, and in turn as well inform people who are developing these technologies about what it is that people really need and want. So if we're to say, take a step back from basic business and say, okay, well, how could we potentially empower an entrepreneur to give eye exams and sell these glasses for $3, $4, $5? One solution we might think of would be microcredit. I actually started my career in economic development working in microcredit. And the thing is, microcredit is, can be an amazing tool when the entrepreneur can assess their risk, if you look below, when there's an ongoing concern already, and when you're somewhat agnostic as to what somebody is selling. So if you think about where microcredit works well when done well, is when a woman or normally a woman or an individual has a business, they can project their demand, they've been successful, but they can't meet unmet demand because they simply lack access to capital. They need to be able to have money so that they can buy more things to sell more things. If we go back to the glasses example, if we're trying to empower a woman entrepreneur to sell glasses or cook stoves or what have you, but to give eye exams and sell reading glasses, that doesn't exist. There are no ongoing concerns. There are no individuals who already have these businesses and communities. As well, there's nowhere to buy those glasses to be able to sell those glasses. So for a variety of reasons, but for those in particular, credit or some form of providing capital is essential, but it's not enough. So we need a more robust solution if we want to get new things to new markets by empowering new entrepreneurs. So one solution might be that we could train people through an enhanced microcredit type mechanism, but we're still not going to get to the crux of the problem. We're simply going to have people trained, but they're not going to have the resources or the support or the teaching, training, and guidance that they need to get out to communities. And if you think about as well, if we're to go and ask somebody if they want to start a local business giving eye exams and selling reading glasses, it's incredibly uncertain. I mean, if you think about, you think about yourself, and if we come up and ask you, would you like to start a business giving eye exams and selling reading glasses, and there's a market where nobody's ever done it before, where people have only gotten them donated before, and as well, you have no knowledge of how to start that business. You have no self-confidence. You're uncertain in the market. You're uncertain in your own ability to do it. It's a very challenging endeavor, and so you need a higher level of support. And certainly, simply offering credit isn't enough. And in addition to that, there are going to be ups and downs in the business. So you need some a responsive mechanism to this fluctuation. So if we say basic business isn't there, microcredit isn't enough, moving left, enhanced microcredit with training simply isn't enough, well, then you get to this concept of microfranchising. And microfranchising is something that's been done, in different parts of the world by fantastic organizations. And the basic idea is that the organizations that work in microfranchising recognize that there are all of these, that a more robust mechanism is needed. And so they endeavor to import the products where needed, identify and train the entrepreneurs, provide all of the support, and get the products into the entrepreneurs' hands so that they can go out in their communities and sell these things. But the issue with microfranchising, with what we're doing and what we're trying to do and the types of products that we're trying to empower people to be able to offer, is that it uses a credit mechanism. So if you think, going back to that glasses example, if we walked up as an organization to Juana and said, would you like to start this business with microcredit, we've already agreed that that's not enough. If we said, okay, well, why don't we use a micro-franchising approach? We can import the glasses. We can create that part of the supply chain. We can teach you, train you, provide you with everything that you need. Obviously, there's a lot of feedback that has to go on so that we learn about what it is that you need. But sort of like a franchise, we can give you, give you your marketing materials and help set pricing and all of that. We can provide you with the glasses, but with micro-franchising, because it's a credit mechanism, it still doesn't overcome uncertainty for the types of things that we're offering. So if I say to Juana, we'll give you the glasses, we'll teach you, we'll train you, she says, okay, well, maybe I can do this now. I have your support, I can go out and do it. And then I say, okay, and to start this business that you don't feel comfortable with yet, you have to start off with a 100% loan that you're going to have to pay back, regardless of how well you do. Well, Juana's going to say, I don't know. I don't think I can do this. Or maybe she's going to say she can do it, but she's going to have a down month because she's learning a new business, and she's going to have to pay back the loan regardless of whether she has revenues. And so we're going to potentially further impoverish her. Or she's going to go back to her family and say, I want to start this business and I want to take out a loan to quit. And they're going to say, Juana, you're crazy. You can't do this. Only doctors can sell glasses. And why would we take out a loan and take on this incredible risk to do something that we don't have confidence in? So the point being, micro-franchising can work and can work well, but where we see it working most effectively is if you go to the bottom there is with consumables. And that's somewhat the Avon ladies for the poor, as some organizations call it. And so if you think about things that people are already familiar with, that don't cost a lot of money, where there's a lot of turnover, where oral rehydration salts, soaps, health and hygiene products, condoms, things like that, consumables where you don't have to incur a big financial risk and you can go door to door and people are continuously buying these things. With consumables like that, micro-franchising can work very, very well and is an appropriate approach. But if you move to the left, for capital goods and services with new businesses, things like glasses, books, stoves, and solar lights, the risk is too high. The uncertainty is too high. So what we simply do is, taking that into account, is when we approach Juana or a potential entrepreneur, is we say, we'll bring in the glasses. We'll find the sources for the other products. We'll teach you, train you on how to do this. You have to go through this training, a self-selection mechanism of training. After you're up to speed, you don't have to take out a loan. We consign you everything. We consign you with a basket of solutions. So you get all of this up front. You don't have to pay anything. You simply have to agree that you're going to go out to communities, give this a shot, work with local community leaders, promote, and try to sell these products. Then after you're done, after you've sold it, you come back and meet with our local leadership. You keep your part of the profits based on what you sold, which is fixed for every product. You give the rest back to us, and we reinvest it in your business and in other businesses. So what consignment mechanism does is it helps us to empower the potential of the new entrepreneur to overcome the uncertainty, because it's a risk-shifting mechanism whereby we're bearing the risks we should, which are financial, and she's bearing the risks that she should, which is time and energy and contacts. And if it works, she learns as she goes and she gets better at what she does and she sells more and she offers more and more products and has success and stays with this for 10 years, as many women have done. If it doesn't work, she gives everything back to us. She doesn't suffer financially. She's taken away some knowledge. We then take what she's given back. We go train somebody else and provide it to them. So this empowers us to get these new products to new markets through local entrepreneurs. And it empowers entrepreneurs to take a chance in an environment where they haven't been able to take a chance in the past, and provide and create a supply chain to get people out, to get women out there to create awareness and create marketing, to create the impact that we're looking for. And as well, create a relationship with their clients and their customers to learn about what they may need in the future. So, when we think about the micro-consignment model, really what we're trying to do, to reiterate a bit, is we're trying to convert uncertainty to risk. And as we know, uncertainty is paralyzing. And so for someone to take on a new endeavor, you have to get past this level of uncertainty, create risk, create something where somebody can calculate the opportunity, the upsides and the downsides. And we do that essentially through creating self-efficacy. And self-efficacy basically meaning where somebody feels like they're able to do something and they have the skill sets and the tools and the support to be able to do it, where they have confidence in themselves and their ability to succeed. And really it gets down to two simple questions, and there's a great book out there called Influencer, which gets into behavior and how we decide to do things. And basically what you need are two things. You have to ask two questions if we think about the entrepreneur, but as well if we think about the purchasers. There has to be ability and motivation. And the simple question is, can I do it? Right? So what we're trying to do is get to yes for that. So we need an entrepreneur to be able to feel, maybe not 100% in the beginning, but enough to take a chance that she can do it. She can do this business. And then the question is one of motivation. Is it worth it? If I do it, is it going to be worth it for me? And so it's to see that once she gets out there, she's going to earn some money. And so that she can see that as soon as possible. And consignment empowers us to do that, because at the very first sale that she makes, she's going to earn money. And that is net income. It's not going to go back to pay back a loan. It's going to go directly in her pocket. And so as she moves forward, as the entrepreneur moves forward, the answer to can I do it becomes a stronger and stronger yes. And the motivation of is it worth it becomes a stronger and stronger yes. And so with this, the answer to both of these questions always has to be yes. And it's our job in working with local communities and local entrepreneurs to essentially try to find out where the no's are right now. And that's really where the micro-consignment model came from. We didn't have some preconceived notion of we want to create a model to create access at the base of the pyramid. It was simply a recognition that there are these problems, there's this breakdown in access. Let's work with communities to find out where the no's are in the ability and motivation. Let's work with local entrepreneurs to find out where they are. And let's convert those into yeses. And most certainly, the question also comes down to the products. If you look at a water filter, a solar light, or what have you, the question is for the purchasers, can I buy it? Right? Can I afford to buy a pair of glasses? Right? But even apart from that, getting to at your doorstep part is the ability to can be geographic, right? Can I do it? Well, is it being offered to me? Is it anywhere close to me? Yeah, that's why it's critical to have a push mechanism and go out and bring things to people. So we're constantly looking at the ability when somebody asks themselves, can I buy these glasses, or can I buy this water filter? We have to come up with yeses there. And then in addition to that, as with all marketing, the critical part is motivation. Even if I can buy it, is it worth it for me to do it? And that gets to what really matters to people, as we well know. It's not about the real need of pure water, right? That doesn't motivate. But it's an understanding of why somebody would want to purchase this. The motivation being is I want my children to be healthy. Right? I don't want to spend money on medication every month. So get to the root causes of what motivates people, so that not only the entrepreneur has a yes answer to both of these questions, but in addition to that, none of this works at all. The whole supply chain breaks down and the whole entrepreneurial mechanism breaks down unless the purchaser says, yes, I can buy it, and yes, I'm motivated to buy it, and it's worth it for me to do so. And having a market mechanism forces us to be very good at getting to yes on those questions, versus, in contrast, if we were to donate things, can I get it? Yeah, I can get it. But is it worth it? Am I going to use it? Well, I haven't had to go through the process of really understanding why I have this thing. And that's why oftentimes things get left on the shelf that get donated and aren't used. two other things I just wanted to touch on to keep in mind, and I think that oftentimes in this work we get very, when we talk about social enterprise or social entrepreneurship or base of the pyramid or what have you, talk about entrepreneurs, be it microcredit entrepreneurs, micro-franchise, micro-consignment, whatever type of local entrepreneur that in our work we're trying to empower to be successful. Oftentimes we get stuck on talking about money, 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 and the economics of it, and how much somebody needs to earn to do this. And that's certainly a critical factor. But I heard someone say very well and sort of put it into these three pieces of why we work. And certainly if, we work because we want to earn income, we want to have money for ourselves and our families. And that's a critical piece, and we can't be dismissive of that in any way. But as well, we work, and the women entrepreneurs work for so many other reasons. I mean, if you think about yourselves, or I think about myself, I don't work just for the money. And successful entrepreneurs don't work for the money. You work for other reasons. You work because you want to contribute to society. You want to contribute to your community. You have passion about solving a problem and helping other people. In addition to that, we work for self-actualization reasons. We want to aspire to see what we can be and how much we can accomplish. And so my point being in this is that, yes, money is important and how much people earn is important, but what we've learned over time is that that's a baseline thing, and that's a critically important thing, but the women entrepreneurs who are most successful do it because they want to contribute to their communities, and they want to get self-efficacy. They want to self-actualize. They want to get better. They want to feel dignity and self-esteem and pride. And so it's important in all of this, as we talked about, yes, the micro-consignment model is a financial mechanism that empowers the supply chain. It's that we're working with entrepreneurs and the communities themselves to understand the income levels that are needed and that can be provided, but also understand how people want to contribute and what is it that people want to achieve for themselves in their lives. And we're supporting them in all of these different ways, not just giving products and giving money. And so it becomes a relationship where we learn from each other and we learn what motivates and what people want to have the ability to do. And I would just say as a last point, when we talk about social entrepreneurship on the whole, with the micro-consignment model as maybe an example, I think when we look at trying to serve and create systems changes that can empower billions of people around the world that are marginalized or vulnerable, living in poverty, it can be exceedingly intimidating. And I think that the key is when we talk about systems change and trying to innovate to create models that are going to scale. The high-impact social entrepreneurs that I know and that I see and that I've been very fortunate to work with aren't trying to change the entire system at once, sort of a Herculean effort of shifting the entire direction of society. What you find, I believe, is that people work very hard and look at the capital mix, the economic capital, social capital, cultural capital, physical capital, what have you, in communities, and try to find out where are the gaps. Why, if there's a system that isn't working, is there a catalyst, which is oftentimes counterintuitive, that can be used to change that system? Or is there a trim tab? There's if anybody's ever heard of Buckminster Fuller, who is sort of an inventor and innovator, he talks about this concept of a trim tab, and you see the picture of the airplane, and basically a trim tab is this little rudder on an airplane or on a ship that is very easy to turn, and then it empowers the entire aircraft or ship to turn. So it's, can you find this little thing that you can change that empowers everything else to be changed and change the direction of a system or change the direction of where people are going with their lives. That's what high-impact social entrepreneurship is, to my mind. It's not about looking for a massive change. It's about digging deep, getting to the root cause, getting past the symptoms, getting to the problems, and using the leverage that already exists in the community. And so if you look at, for example, the micro-consignment model, to our mind, that catalyst, that trim tab that creates this whole ecosystem is in many ways simply saying that an entrepreneur gets to pay after they sell instead of before they sell. If you look at Muhammad Yunus and microcredit, going back to that, what was the power of microcredit? It's not giving loans to poor women. And I think that's where things got off track oftentimes in recent years. Yeah, the power of microcredit was finding this catalyst. What was the real problem? The problem was collateral. The problem is that banks wouldn't loan money to low-income women entrepreneurs because they didn't have collateral. That was the main reason. And so what did Yunus do? He said, well, let's create collateral already, what already exists. So let's form groups that have social capital, and they can support each other, and that group can be the collateral. That's the catalyst that empowered all of microcredit to happen. If you look at Martin Luther King, right, and sort of what's the catalyst? Or obviously, Mahatma Gandhi. It was nonviolence. It was basically saying, if you're going to hit me, if you're going to use violence against me, I'm not going to use it back. These counterintuitive things that, when implemented intelligently and with persistence in an entrepreneurial way, can change the big things. And so what I would simply say, any unsolicited advice out there, is that, this is just a real search to continually find these catalysts and these trim tabs that create that self-efficacy, that help individuals, local communities, local groups feel like they can do things and that they're motivated to do things because they're going to be the real change agent in the future. And we're simply trying to intervene now to break the cycle of poverty so that over time they can continue to not break the cycle of poverty in the ways that we've worked together on, but now feel empowered to break it in other ways with their communities and for their communities. So I will leave it there. Hopefully this is a little bit helpful in terms of our model, the micro-consignment model, and maybe a few takeaways that we've learned in the process of trying to do this work in the different places where we're doing it.
Great, Greg. That's really excellent. And we have several terrific questions from our participants from around the world, and I'm sure we have a few classroom questions as well. So I'll just launch right into them. The first question is from Michael Felix. He's the Central America Program Director at Trickle Up. And he says, thanks for the presentation. I would like to hear how you recruit micro-consignment entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, Michael. Yeah, what we've certainly learned over time is in so much of sort of our approach is about self-selection. So if you think about it, if we if we're here, for example, in Nicaragua, and we want to go up and work in a community, or somebody's asked us if we could go work in a community in a new region, we don't know who could be potentially successful micro-consignment entrepreneurs, and we actually call them community advisors. So we don't know we don't know people there. And in addition to that, even if we did really know people, this is an entirely new thing. And so, past experience in other types of work may not be an indicator of potential success or desire to do this. As we all know, people don't have resumes, or people don't, recommendations from professors that they studied with at university. It simply doesn't exist. And so, what we do is we work with local organizations. So maybe, for example, if Trickle Up was in this region and said, hey, we'd like to test this out and try it, we'd say, okay, well, can you get together a group of 10 women that explain the opportunity very broadly, 10 women that you've worked with who seem to be ambitious to improve their own lives and those of their communities, and then we'll come in and give a presentation about this. And so one of our local leaders comes in and talks to, gives a presentation to these 10 women. We purposely keep it to about an hour and a half to 2 hours maximum. We present the work, and then we say, if you're interested, we're going to be back next week. Obviously, we try to be in a location that's as close as possible for everyone. We don't pay for the training. We don't ask people to pay for the training. And so to come back next week, Thursday at 2 o'clock. And what happens is, you can all guess, is those 10 women are now 7 women, because 3 of them have gotten a little bit of information about it and have decided that this isn't for them. And so we stretch out this training process for over time, which is classroom sessions and then field sessions where they actually are out doing the work and earning money. And that 10 goes down to 4. And so after the end of the training, you have 4 women who've shown through their effort that they're interested in doing it. They've learned everything. They're informed. They have the capacity to do it. And then we consign them everything. And that's when they become asesores comunitarios. So in essence, we're not picking people. People are picking themselves. We certainly then set out, here are our expectations of you in this work, and here should be your expectations of us in this work. And then we continue to support them over time. So in the end, we found that using the self-selection mechanism may be a little bit more work up front, but it helps us to offer an opportunity in an intelligent way and find the people who are truly interested in doing it by showing it through their effort.
Great. Thank you, Greg. I have Howard Finkelstein has asked this question. What happens when the woman has gone 6 months and selling is happening very poorly and she's not making much progress? What do you do?
Yeah, there are a variety of things. I mean, certainly you get into the question of if selling poorly as to why. And that's where this isn't something where we're simply providing the products and walking away. I mean, our local regional coordinators are there to teach and train and support. And and what happens with consignment, I think sort of the real power behind it is you create this alignment, whereby if people aren't buying things, the entrepreneur isn't successful. If the entrepreneur isn't successful, the regional coordinator isn't successful. We aren't successful. Nobody's successful. So we're all very aligned to achieve the very same thing, which is to have people buying and using these products. So when the entrepreneurs and the regional coordinator meet on a monthly basis, oftentimes it's really about problem solving. It's, how is this community, or, let's prioritize communities, and why go here and why not go there. So in the beginning, obviously, we try to avoid this issue. And try to give the entrepreneur, the skill set and the insights, and and vice versa, so that we can be successful. Having said that, there will be times that that a certain product won't work. What we have found, and this is goes into why we choose where we work, is that by providing a basket, which we've developed over 10 years, and has been a lot of the really hard work of this, is that although a certain community may not need eyeglasses, of which most actually will, or there may be saturation, let's say, there will be a need for solar lights, or for a cook stove, or for a water purification bucket. So having a basket of solutions creates opportunity and helps to mitigate risk. So obviously we've got to do a good job organizationally of upfront picking where to go, but that gets back into the key of talking to local organizations from those regions, because when we present what we do, they say, yes, there is a need, and then they put us in touch with local leaders. But it certainly is the case that she may not be selling well, and so we have to set, we have to set indicators of success, and there has to be accountability set into it. And so what we have is a quarterly plan that we use, and it's quarterly and not monthly, because we believe monthly is a bit too short and arbitrary. And it's just, you can't measure on a monthly basis oftentimes with this work. I think it's going to skew where you think your performance is. So we have a quarterly goals and objectives for the entrepreneur based on how many communities they're going to visit, and what projected sales should be, and also professional development and all of that. If that entrepreneur doesn't meet those quarterly goals and objectives, what we do is we use a red card and a yellow card system. You know, one of the things we certainly recognized over the years is that development professionals, we're really good at wanting to give people opportunities, and we really stink at taking opportunities away. And so we have to take it out of our own hands in many regards and have a system in place, but a system that also that has some heart in it. It isn't too harsh, but it's, you know, it's understanding. So what happens if she hasn't met her goals and objectives? That entrepreneur gets a yellow card, which is basically a warning in many regards. And you know, we're using obviously soccer here, or football, and which puts her sort of, she's got to step up and do it over the next 3 months. If then it's time where another yellow card would come, we actually have a red card. And a red card means that the entrepreneur loses that opportunity. But she loses it for 3 months, for a quarter. If she wants to go back and regroup and think, you know, help work with us to problem solve, you know, maybe she had something go on in her life, she can then reapply and start up again after 3 months. But, you know, the idea in all of this is to set out very clear goals and objectives that the entrepreneur takes ownership of and agrees upon. Because what we're not trying to do here is be managers. We're not trying to be supervisors. We're simply trying to say, here's this system. We work within the system. You work within the system. And if you agree to it, then let's move forward. And you agree to the opportunities, and you also agree to the fact that there needs to be accountability. Because if you're not going to take advantage of this opportunity, then there's other need, and we have limited time and limited resources. We need to offer this opportunity to somebody else. Are you there?
I just wasn't unmuting. We have a question from Brian Doe. Okay. Can you hear me, Greg? Greg, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. Okay. Brian Doe has asked this question. Hi, I was wondering how the program assesses or defines demand before entering a new community, since this is a major factor of uncertainty for the micro entrepreneur. How much regular interaction with the sellers goes on during the program, monthly, weekly, otherwise?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a great question. I mean, I think the most, you know, obviously one of the most critical roles that entrepreneur plays is assessing needs and, you know, diagnosing needs and trying to work to figure out if there are solutions that fit those needs. So, you know, to begin with, I mean, one of the things in starting off with, you know, this basket is, you know, we start off with something if we're going to a new community, let's say. And we start off with glasses, we start off with solar, we pick a couple of the high impact products that we think have the greatest opportunity. And that entrepreneur goes out to the community and does her work. And certainly that's, you know, as a first step is assessing the needs for the things that are already there. Yeah. But then we're meeting with, you know, I say we, I mean our local team, meeting with local leaders to try to talk about the other things that can be offered to see if there's demand for that. So there's this constant back and forth to figure out within a given region what are the highest priorities. You know, is there no electricity, so people are really focused on solar lights? Or is everybody cooking on the floor and people see a need for cook stoves? So let's focus on that. But we take everything out there and offer it all to try to figure out you know, where are the real priorities in a given community. Apart from that, you know, what really happens is you have this up and down whereby entrepreneurs will assess the need and then they'll sort of come to the regional coordinator, to us and say, there's a need, is there a solution? And so we go out and look around the world and see if there's a solution. And conversely, we may see a solution, somebody's come out with a new solar light, we want to know if there's a need and a desire to purchase that light. And so it's this up and down aligned supply chain which helps us to have this feedback loop to figure out these problems. So for instance, if, and this is an exact case, if we say, oh, well, there's this new solar lamp out there that looks like it might fit, what we'll do is buy a very small inventory to begin with. We'll talk to our, get sort of focus groups of our local team, local individuals, and then we'll put it in the hands of the sort of the top entrepreneurs, and they'll go out and market it and try to sell it in a community where they're doing something else. So they can piggyback off of everything else that they're already doing. So the cost of us figuring out whether something will work or not is exceedingly low. It's simply just the cost of the product and the time and energy to get it. And so then they'll come back and we'll work on the, on our 4 Ps of seeing, if this can work, how it should work. And then we make an assessment to the need, and either we say this product doesn't work, or we say yes it is, and then we buy another larger inventory. And one of the things, just 2 quick notes here. One is that we as an organization don't repatriate anything from the sales. All of the sales income stays in the country to empower the local organizations and local individuals to do this. We provide from a funding perspective to get products or marketing or train people originally to have our team. We provide that initial funding, but what happens over time is obviously this scales up with more entrepreneurs and more products. And then we're able to access debt financing to help this grow. So for example, in Guatemala now, the local Guatemalan company, which is owned by 8 Guatemalans, has gross revenues of about $300,000. And they're accessing debt financing to buy solar lights and water filters and what have you, which takes us out of that equation of having to buy things or fund it through our nonprofit. We simply help with the new products to buy initial inventories to go out and work together to see if there's a need and an opportunity.
That's great. I think what I'm going to do, we actually have quite a few questions queued up from participants who are listening and joining us or watching in different parts of the world, but I'm just going to open up the mic to our classroom to take one question there. And so let me see if this works. This is the real experimental part of the webinar. So the microphone is now open in the classroom. And any questions, go ahead and ask them.
We have a question from Julia.
Okay, and Julia is from Australia. Julia, go ahead.
And Julia's question is, could you please give some examples of give some examples of your trim tabs and what they've looked like?
Yeah, I think that, well, the main trim tab is simply consignment. Recognizing everything that I spelled out in that owner's diagram, that between donations and having people start a business with credit, with debt, that there's a gap, and so creating this consignment mechanism, a financing mechanism. I think all along the way, then that's, say, the big strategic trim tab. All along the way, then on a constant basis, normally through falling on our faces, we're figuring out what are the more tactical trim tabs, so to speak. Certainly we learn that this alignment part is key. And how we create this alignment, and then how can we go about taking advantage of that. But in addition, one of the things I didn't touch on is apart from ability and motivation, I think there's a social psychologist, and excuse me, I got this wrong, but by the name of B.J. Fogg at Stanford. And what we're talking about here is it's change, and it's about behavior. And I think he has this equation, which is B equals M plus A plus T. And behavior equals motivation plus ability plus trigger. And so, it's, if you want to influence behavior, which is so much of what we're doing, we want people to become entrepreneurs, or we want people to buy things. Yes, they have to be motivated to do something, they have to be able to do it, but there has to be a trigger. And so oftentimes that, if you look at consignment or on a tactical level, the catalyst is that trigger, right? So for example, in Haiti, we're trying to empower people to get solar lights. And even within the micro-consignment model with just the entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs are saying people can't afford to buy these solar lights, which are $8 or $9. And why? Because, well, people aren't motivated or they're not able to or what have you. And so the question is, okay, well, people don't see the value. We know this saves them a significant amount of money. I mean, the point of if you look at the greatest impact of what we do, it's the cost avoidance that people have through these products. So we know people are saving it, but they might intellectually know, but they don't feel it. So how can we help them to feel it? So what we did is started working through schools and had the entrepreneurs go into schools and give the solar lights to kids and their families, their mothers, for 2 weeks, and do an education project where they can learn about the impact and track the impact in their homes. And at the end of those 2 weeks, if they want to buy the light, then they can buy the light. If they don't, they can simply return it. Yeah. But this sort of catalyst being letting them sort of try to buy, letting them learn about the value, and then make the decision, because they won't do it up front, understandably. And so in doing this, what did we find? Well, in our very first time doing this, out of 18 families that had solar lights, 15 ended up buying them. And so, our catalyst, our trim tab, our trigger there being, people understanding the value proposition and giving it to people, almost consigning the end user the product before they actually have to pay for it.
So what I'm going to do now, just first of all, let everyone know that it's almost the top of the hour, and if it's okay with Greg, I'd actually like to continue because we really have some excellent questions stacked up in the queue here, and if possible, I'd even like to get one more in from the classroom. Are you able to go on a little bit longer, Greg?
Yeah, I've got a few minutes, and then my apologies, I've got to run to the airport.
Okay. Well, we don't want you to miss your plane.
No, it's all right.
Okay. So this is a question from Derajay Legese, who is, I believe, from Ethiopia. I appreciate the idea and what you are doing in micro-consignment model. I have two questions. But in the process of doing, do you consider the local knowledge that gives a perfect solution to the problem? Or you bring the solution, or maybe the society only short of the means to do it, like finance? In other words, I think what you're saying is, do you solve all the problems, or do you kind of let things sort out by, local resources, local solutions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'm here presenting the micro-consignment model and how this works, and to all of you. But these trim tabs and these the tactics and strategies often and how this actually works, that comes from the field. That comes from the entrepreneurs, and they're the real innovators in this in terms of figuring out what works. The key is we're working together as a team to empower each other, but that comes, and it comes from the field, A, and B, we certainly recognize we're not trying, one, I guess, B is this is a tool. Communities need so much more than what we do. This isn't a panacea, but it's a tool to solve a certain set of problems. Now it creates a platform because you have these empowered entrepreneurs who can then solve other problems in the communities. But we recognize it's simply a tool. And to solve challenges in communities, you need community members using their own resources and knowledges and skill sets to have as many tools as possible to solve those problems. And I recognize even though it is a tool, we may come in and say this looks like a hammer, and somebody says actually we need a screwdriver. So that's the critically important part of it. But one of our biggest challenges in this is we look to scale, and we're not looking to do this all over the world ourselves. We're looking to empower other people to take this methodology and use it for themselves. One of the biggest challenges is simplicity. I mean, you can only scale something simple. And so what are the 8 things that really make this tick? right? What are the 8 sort of non-negotiable things that make this tick? Yeah. And I think with all due respect to microcredit, of which I love and I think when done well is incredibly empowering, I think when things went a little bit wrong in the last couple of years is because people lost sight of or didn't know what were those critical non-negotiable things that actually make microcredit microcredit. And so we're searching for what those things are, and that those are what microconsignment is. But everything else about what you do is simply guidelines. And it's going to look very different in Ethiopia than it's going to look in Nicaragua, and it should. And so it's simply, here's the tool, adapt it, use it how you can, and we're trying to provide from our work over these last 10 years of doing it, our best guess to what really makes this work so that people can be successful as quickly as possible.
Great. Let's try to squeeze in a couple more here, and I'll chop this off at about 5 past, Greg, so we can make sure we get you to the airport. This is from Bilay Kelly Benet, and how can microfinance providers incorporate microconsignment strategy in an attempt to reduce risks for the micro borrowers and portfolio risks? Tough question.
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, I think, you know, we in the past in some of my advisory work and such, you know, we've thought that partnering with microfinance organizations would just be a real win for everybody. And I think what we need, I mean, if you think about scaling and partnering with organizations, which we do a lot, you know, what I've learned over time is I think you need 3 things. I think that you need sort of the need and the motivation in the field, right? And that's what we're talking about with communities and entrepreneurs. So that has to be there. Number 1. Number 2 is you need real buy-in at the top of the organization. So the leaders of the organization have to say, yes, this is important for us to do, right? So if we're to present a microconsignment model to a microfinance organization, leadership, we all have to agree, yes, let's do this, we believe in this. I used to think that those were kind of the 2 keys to success. And what I learned a bit over time, and this is just a constant process, is that actually what really makes it click is the organization itself. The people who are running things on a day-to-day basis in the field need to be allocated, need to have the resources, be given the time, the clear prioritization. Right, you think about a university, right? I mean, the prioritization is on research, so that's what you focus on oftentimes, right? Priority might not be on other things, so you focus on what your indicator of success is. So the organization, the microcredit finance organization, for example, or any organization, it's the people actually who work on a daily basis need to know that this is very, very important and need to know how to do it and be given the time to do it. It needs to become something that's a key part of, you know, even as a pilot of the organization. So, you know, what we found is often we haven't had all those 3 pieces in place. And if you don't have one, it doesn't work. But I think, yes, if we can get those 3 pieces in place with microfinance organizations, with what we're doing, is a huge opportunity. And I believe leverage is critically important in this work, so to leverage off of each other's capacities and work. And just with an understanding that although you could put both of these under the microfinance hat, that they are different. I mean, our main indicator of success is not having as many entrepreneurs as possible. It's having as many people in villages have access to things as possible. So that mean fewer entrepreneurs, sort of 20% serving 80%. Whereas an indicator of success, obviously for microfinance, and what makes it work really well, is to be empowering as many entrepreneurs as possible. And so you have slightly different indicators. But these most certainly should not be mutually exclusive. And yeah, love to find a way to really have a good collaboration with the microfinance institution.
Okay, we're pretty much out of time here. What I wanted to do, first of all, is for me personally to thank you, but I also wanted to give our classroom participants here in Durham, New Hampshire, an opportunity to quickly thank you, Greg, in a special way. So are you ready, classroom? Let's thank Greg. Okay, I was actually hoping that you would do the same clap that you had given for our speaker yesterday, but I guess you guys didn't get the
Oh,
new.
no, we're about to do it. We're ready.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Thank you very much. You were hitting something very hard, and I'll take that as
They were
thank you.
They were giving you at the very end. They're pushing out their hands and giving it back to you for all your great work. We really appreciate this, Greg. I think it's been very informative. We actually had a couple of questions that we couldn't get to, but if it's okay with you, I'll let people have your contact information and your website, and let them know that they can get in touch with you to ask questions.
Yeah,
and that this
certainly.
whole webinar, as we usually do, is going to be posted on the SNVP website. The recording should be up there sometime early to mid next week. And Greg, I am going to make a couple of quick announcements. So if you need to sign off, then by all means go ahead and get ready to run to the airport. Thank you again. And I'm just going to briefly tell everyone that we do have upcoming webinars. August 21st, we're going to be featuring ProPOR Value Chain and Enterprise Development with Ann Gordon from Mennonite Economic Development Associates. September 11th, Microfinance Interest Rates with Chuck Waterfield from Microfinance Transparency. October 9th, What's Next for Savings Groups with Paul Rippey from savingsrevolution.org, which is also going to be talking about the training that we're doing in Arusha, Tanzania, November 11th to the 22nd, that Paul will be a part of. And then December 11th, Social Enterprise and the Triple Bottom Line with Drew Tolchin from Social Enterprise Associates. So I want to thank everybody for your attentiveness, for your good questions, and again, thanks to Greg, and appreciate everyone being a part of the SNVP webinars, and especially to our classroom here in Durham. Everyone have a good day, and thank you again.